Colleagues, a few days ago, I posted a video about the rising issue of food insecurity in South Africa, and particularly in the city of Tshwane, where I stay. Over the last few days, that issue has actually worsened. And I did mention at the time that there were community members who have started essentially coming out of their community, beginning to line the streets looking for something to eat. Now, over the last few days, we've seen residents beginning to provide some relief to these community members. But what that has done in some parts, it has actually created an environment where more and more people are now desperate. Just yesterday, we saw a situation where over 800 people had gathered near a local retail store. The police were out in numbers, of course, concerned that this was going to lead to looting, etc. But I would want you to look at this crowd and notice that there's absolutely no PPE, personal protective equipment, there are no masks, there's no social distancing being observed. And this, of course, is a major crisis when it comes to the conditions of the lockdown. This particular problem is in an area called Mooiplaas Informal Settlement on the top left here, just outside Pretoria. It is a fairly large community. We did an analysis of that community and found there to be in the region of about 9,000 homes or 9,000 dwellings in that area. If we say there's about 3.5 to 4 people per dwelling, you can see that that's around 40,000 people living there. And of course, what this food insecurity issue is now doing, it's leading to a situation where community members are forming crowds, which of course raises the risk of infection. As you'll see from this short video here, this crowd was formed yesterday, wanting food relief, desperate for something to eat. Now, we engaged the crowd along with the police. We have formed a community committee to work on this issue of food insecurity, and there's incredible work being done in raising support. But of course, this is going to require a much greater effort than just individual community members. This really speaks to the need for government, social development, others to come to the party to expand their efforts in dealing with this issue. We did say at the time a few days ago that we're not confident that the Department of Social Development's efforts are of the scale that it needs to be. We also said that there's much more coordination and collaboration needed between the likes of the faith communities across different faith traditions with government, and of course the work of police in working with these communities. What we did do in this particular instance is to invite the community members to contribute to an online platform that allows us to receive their contact details. About 300 community members have responded. And what's interesting about this exercise is of the 300 or so that have responded, about 90% are non-South African. More than 90% have been willing to provide a passport number or some form of identification. But significantly, it is the migrant community in South Africa that is most vulnerable, most in need of relief. We have argued a number of times in the last couple of weeks that what is needed is a community-based social support model, possibly using a school or other infrastructure where police, social services, the Department of Health can work together to do testing, to do social relief in a way that is secure and that allows us to maintain the protocols of the lockdown. If we do not create these kinds of local community-based solutions, I'm afraid to say that the conditions on the ground among these poor communities are going to be such that our lockdown inevitably will become meaningless. As I've said, these communities are coming out in numbers. They're desperate for food. They don't have masks. They're not using social distancing. And so this is an appeal to government to say, we have to deal with this problem or else we are going to undermine the lockdown in its entirety. Let me finish by saying we have formulated a simple response plan for communities that would like to deal with this in their community. What we've said to them is there's a simple 7-step process. Identify the network in the community, identify the coordinating parties that will lead that network, form what the South African Council of Churches have called a LEAN or a local ecumenical action network to work with those communities, clarify the logistics of where will support be stored, how will it be transported, how will it be delivered to these communities. And then, of course, the critical part is about identifying the beneficiaries. We have to figure out on the ground who are these individuals, where are they located, and we can then use that data, possibly instead of sending food to them, to send vouchers or other forms of financial support to those communities Then, of course, we need to raise the funding to do that. Individuals are coming on board already to do this in our community. We would encourage you to do that in your community. And then critically, in the end, we need to report back on what is distributed so that those who've made those donations can feel confident about the governance and the transparency about that. I encourage you to share this. I think that government needs to rethink their current approach to DSD. The police and the military need to have an all hands on deck approach, not only with DSD, but working with communities to resolve this. And in the end, as we move from a lockdown to more of a partial opening up, this need is going to have to be mitigated. There are going to be thousands of South Africans who are desperate, who need this kind of support. Not only South Africans, but visitors and migrants, and we're going to have to put in place the structures and the processes to deal with it.